Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Strong Stoic Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Tumblin. This episode is coming out right after my discussion with Josh Bertolotti, my latest discussion from In Search of Wisdom. And we spoke a great deal about how to deal with your capacity for evil. And one of the points that we touched on was how it's not uncommon for us to lose faith along the journey. Specifically, we were talking about how when we make mistakes or fall into a vicious action, how we sometimes begin to lose our belief that we even deserve to be happy and have a flourishing life at all. And so I'd like to dig into these moments a bit more in today's episode, and it might get a bit dark, so a little warning here. I have my strength shirt on. It's just a old gym shirt that has strength written on it. But so it might be a little dark here, but anyways, I think this is a really important topic to cover and get into because it's one of the more darker sides of human psychology, but I think it's important that we talk about this because it's something I think that we all experience from time to time. Before I get into the topic, though, I actually do have some announcements, and I'm trying to be happy about this because it's a happy announcement, but this podcast is actually now part of the Walled Garden Podcast Network, which is a curation of podcasts by contributors of the Walled Garden Philosophical Society, which I was actually recently invited to join. Now, if you haven't heard of it, the Walled Garden Philosophical Society, it's a global community of philosophers and seekers who are coming together to pursue truth, wisdom, virtue, and the divine wherever they are to be found. Now, I've been invited to be a founding member of that community of the Walled Garden as a director, a contributor, a mentor, and a philosopher. And of course, I said yes because I truly believe in their mission, and the people that are getting involved in this are just amazing. I have a lot of love and respect for these people. Some of them have been on the podcast already. And so this is a very big thing that's happening now, the Walled Garden. And if you'd like to find out more, please check out the website, thewalledgarden.com. You have more information on there about the mission and the vision of the organization and everything that's going to be going on there. And I will actually be doing meetups on there as well. And so there is a tiered subscription service on there where you get to partake in some of that stuff. So that's a really, really exciting thing that's going on in my world. I've been working on this for a few months with these people. I'm really excited about it, and I'd be happy to see you there. Also, just a small thank you to my Patreon supporters. Thank you very much. Also, check me out on Telegram, where there's a group chat. Engage into the conversation there. And finally, check out all my articles on Medium and the Stoic Gym magazine. Okay, let's get into the dark topic. Enough of the happy stuff, right? What is losing faith? Well, we touched on it. Losing faith is probably some of the darkest moments that you're ever going to really experience. In the simplest yet most complex way of saying it is that losing faith means that you no longer see a way to heaven. And I know that's a hell of a way, pun intended, to word it. Perhaps in the Stoic sense, though, you might say losing faith means that you can no longer see a way to a flourishing life. Now, virtue is the only good in Stoicism, so it makes sense then that a Stoic would lose faith when they find themselves doing something vicious despite their best efforts. So losing faith for a Stoic means you lose the belief that you are capable of becoming a good person. Now, let's say that you finally learned how to work harmoniously with a difficult coworker, right? Let's say, as an example, and then one day you or they do something that's just over the top. It just bothers you. And so you freak out, very unstoic of you. And you say some things that you shouldn't say. Maybe you have some regrets for that. Well, you're probably going to feel bad about that, right? Like one of the things that me and Josh concluded in our episode 186 was that in order for you to feel good about virtue, which is what Stoics aim to do, you also need to feel bad about vice. You can't have one without the other. But the road that feeling puts you on is asking yourself if you can ever be truly virtuous. So whenever you miss the mark, whenever you do something vicious, you inevitably are placed in a situation where you have to ask yourself, well, holy shit, am I even capable of being a good person? And that is exactly what losing faith is to a Stoic. So after you freaked out at your coworker and you've called him horrible names, you're going to feel bad. And then you will think, well, damn, I'm never going to get over this impulse. I'm never going to get over my deep bitterness towards this coworker of mine that's always screwing me over. You're never going to be able to get over that, right? So you get caught up in this and you lose faith. You think, I'm never going to be virtuous. I'm never going to be a Stoic or a sage. And the hardest pill to swallow with all of this, friends, is that no, you never really will be entirely virtuous. But that doesn't mean that you don't deserve to flourish and to be happy. Certainly doesn't mean that you shouldn't continue to aim up. There's this Greek story about Sisyphus. I'm going to throw a new take on this. This guy was destined by the gods to roll his stone up the hill, and it would roll down at the end of every day. Now, he knew that despite his efforts rolling that stone up the hill, that it was just going to roll back at the end of the day. He knew that, but he did have a choice, right? He had a choice to put a damn smile on his face and to realize that it's not really a failure unless he decides to not push that rock up the hill the next day. Losing faith is entirely normal. It's like life is really hard. There's no doubt about that. Life is suffering. There's going to be times where you doubt what you're capable of achieving. You're going to doubt the people that you love, the people around you. And again, there will be times where you doubt whether or not you're capable of being a virtuous person, of being a good person and contributing positively to the world, which is equivalent to saying there's going to be times where you're doubting on whether or not you can truly flourish. In Christianity, Jesus Christ, when he was on the cross, he cried out something like, God, why have you forsaken me? That's kind of an interesting idea, isn't it? Because Jesus Christ, he's the Son of God, but he's also God himself. Christianity is full of paradoxes. But really what this means is, Christ, he's here and he's taken on all the sins of the world and he's suffering on behalf of everyone's evil and errors and failures. And even the Son of God, even God himself, even the sage can lose faith at times. And so no, it's not that losing faith is okay. No, it seems to be an inevitable part of the spiritual journey. Now, nothing comes for free, and most things come with something, of course. And losing faith, it actually gives you an opportunity for redemption. If you think about what that feels like, losing faith in that moment, it feels like you're no longer worthy. Now, really what this means is, well, are you worthy of redemption? Now, I know that term, redemption, again, it's a term that is often used in Christianity, and it's very rare that you hear a Stoic use that term. But let's go to the definition of redemption. Well, redemption means the action of saving or being saved from sin, error, or evil. So in my mind, even though we don't use it often as Stoics, redemption is a part of any philosophical journey. Whether you use the damn term or not, at some point we have to call a spade a spade. Now, it might not be a supernatural God that's giving you redemption, right? But what about in relationship to your own conscience? What about in relationship to other people? Is there a form of redemption that looks like that? Now, as far as I can tell, what redemption looks like in Stoicism is actually exactly what I described earlier. You miss the mark, which is what sin really means, by the way. It's an archery term, meaning to miss the mark. So you miss the mark. You feel bad about it. And maybe for a brief moment in time, maybe it's half a second, maybe it's 10 seconds, maybe it's an hour, maybe it's a week. But you stop believing that you can, in fact, be a good person. Now, the Stoic answer to what to do in such a situation is, well, just be a good person after that. Apologize to the person, change your behaviors, move on. And in doing so, you see that virtue is a choice. Virtue is a daily choice, an hourly choice. It's a choice you get to make at every present moment in time. And so redemption in that case is saving yourself from nihilism by being a good person, even though you just failed at it. And it's practically redemptive too, because then you and your coworker get to work together again in harmony. And what is that if not being saved or saving yourself from evil and error and sin? Part of what makes a lot of the topics that I cover very difficult for me is that, much of this it's easy to talk about. Now, it's not easy to talk about. It's very difficult. But what I mean is that it's easy to write down certain things. It's easy to say, for example, well, okay, when you lose faith, just go back to being a good person, right? That's the solution. Well, okay, yeah, that's the solution. But it's a whole other story when you're in that dark moment. It's the problem of the gap between what we know and what we are able to implement and how we act. And that gap is only going to get bigger and bigger as you learn more. The more we know, the more we realize just how often it is that we miss that mark. The truth is, as far as I've been able to figure out, is that losing faith is a huge spiritual challenge. I mean, think about it. By definition, you no longer believe in the journey. So it's kind of a weird thing to say, yeah, well, when you lose faith that being a good person is the way to go and that you're capable of that, well, just be a good person. It's kind of a weird way of thinking about it because, well, the whole point is I don't believe I can be a good person. So how the hell am I just going to be a good person? But I really think that it's the tiniest of steps that allows us to start to regain just a little bit of that faith. There's this quote from Harry Potter. Dumbledore said, "Happiness can be found in the darkest of times if one only remembers to turn on the light." And you can do that. You can turn on the light through action. Through a small action. Hell, through the smallest act of kindness that you can possibly muster. Can you reach out to a family member and tell them you love them? Can you apologize to someone that maybe you've said something that you weren't too proud of? Can you, offer a stranger a smile? And I think that's the steps. Those are the steps. That's the process to regaining faith. Is the smallest step that you can possibly muster that just nudges you in that right direction. The Beatles, and I'm going to end with this, the Beatles wrote this lyric in one of the best songs ever written, Let It Be. And it's always a great lyric to keep in mind because, well, commonly we find ourselves in this situation where we feel like there is no faith. We feel like we can't attain our ideal. We can't flourish. We can't be happy. And so the lyric is this: when the night is cloudy, there is still a light that shines on me. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know it was a bit dark and hopefully hopeful, though. I think, again, these are things that we need to talk about. If you liked this podcast episode, leave a rating and review wherever you are. If you're new here, episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. Please check me out on Instagram and Twitter. Reach out to me. Join the Telegram chat. Tell me how you felt about the episode. Check out the Walled Garden. Not going to bug you anymore. Thanks again. Cheers. Until next time.